chat or unmute. Let us hear from you. We thank our greeter, past President Robert Harris, and the prayer and pledge today will be given by Casey Martin. Please welcome Casey.
Start with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I came across an article recently that describes pretty good Rotary and Rotarians, and I'd like to share it with you. It is good to recognize how different we all are. Our talents, our dreams, our backgrounds, our occupations. And it's good to know that when you created each of us, you broke the mold. No one is exactly like anyone else. Even our thumbprint and our voice track tell us how unique we all are. Yet we thank you that we can take these differences and mobilize them for the good of Rotary and our community. In our differences, we can think the same thoughts and move together toward a common goal. Bless us as we meet together. Thank you for our individuality and also for our common bond at Rotary. Amen.
Amen. It is awesome. Good. Ordinarily, we would have family time with Christy King. Christy is on vacation, so we will have a lot of family time next week.
I saw them with you.
Our announcements, there is a board meeting, the last one of our Rotary year, following the lunch meeting today. Let's see, is Beryl Trayer here for Paul Harris history?
Bill's in North Carolina for 6 months.
It is not clear to me how we will go on without our Paul Harris history moment, but we will try.
He said he's gonna sign somebody.
Yeah,
I did not get the book.
oh well.
Harlan didn't get it either?
I did.
Bill reached out to me, I continued with that, and I thought he said he was gonna get the book here for me. I will work that out with him and perhaps maybe next week
Mhm.
we can carry on that exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we're all just on the edge.
What happens?
We don't know yet. What else?
I'm so sorry.
Is he gonna get arrested? So, Ben, right?
Make it another
I'm
job.
not gonna throw Bill under the bus. I'll take full responsibility.
All right.
Mhm. As long as we know that the book is safe somewhere, we're fine. And now I would like to welcome Lisa Marie Winslow with some unfinished business from
We're moving on. If you didn't get the thank you, May 6th, save the date. But as we are wrapping up some unfinished business, one of our amazing auction items, Julia Kalinsky and Bowles donated this basket, which has in it a gift certificate towards a camp, $450 value towards a Bowles camp. And I realize many of us in this room don't have kids who can go to camp, but we have grandkids. So, and when I tell you there's a plethora of, there's a beach towel in here, there's an ice bucket, a backpack, a cap, you name it. I couldn't even tell you everything that's in here. And it didn't sell at the silent auction. So I wanted to give our membership an opportunity to bid on this, because in the charitable giving that we do, it is a great value and will also help continue to push us over the edge. Yes.
What type of camp and when is it?
It can be any camp. Great question. So it can be any camp. It's for 1 week attendance at any of their day camp. So, yeah.
Do they have a geezer that can?
They don't, Barry. I'm sorry, you aged out.
So.
Jay can't go, Barry can't go, but maybe they'll set a camp up just for y'all. I don't know. Geriatric camp, I don't know.
And what's the?
The gift certificate alone is $450 value. But when I tell you, I mean, I'm just looking in here at the ice bucket and the wine tumblers. I mean, well, that's what I put in them. I don't really know what they're for. Tom,
I've been $450.
wow. Does anybody want to go higher than Tom?
If I can't send Jerry.
Can I hit the bell? So, you pick up on your way out. Thank you. And then next week, I've got one more unsold item that if I can present.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I was staring at the blue finger when she brought that up, and I thought it was the image of God. But that would have only been 400. No. And now, our brand new version of the 50/50 raffle and Lori Whitmer.
Right. Change the rules to try to guarantee we'll have a winner this month. Get your tickets out. We have 40 cards left. You need to draw the ace of spades. If I draw your ticket, you get a chance to purchase more draws from the deck. But keep your tickets out because if the first person doesn't win, I'm going to draw 2 more tickets for somebody else to get a chance. So first person is 091443. All right. Keep your tickets out. It's not over. It's not over yet.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't draw.
Oh.
So would you like a chance to draw again for $5? Okay. The next person. Mix it up. 091446. All right.
Charlie again, huh?
I'm glad. She purchased the most tickets today. So. Oh, three parts. Would you like me to draw? Okay. All right, one more draw. 30, please.
I know. I know.
091445. No, please. Okay. All right.
John, never get that. Okay.
All right, well, that's it for today.
Okay.
All right.
Isn't it true you're going to disperse the winnings this month?
Yes.
Mhm.
So, and I believe next week is our last meeting in May.
Yeah.
If that's correct.
Mhm.
We'll have several people drawn and whoever's closer.
And we'd like to thank you for these innovations to this long-standing and honorable tradition. To introduce our visitors and guests today, I'd like to bring forward Lynn Bauman. Welcome, Lynn.
First, do we have any visiting Rotarians? Okay, P4. Have some guests.
Rex, stand up. Many of you will remember my son Rex, and this is his wife, Josephine.
They have moved from Taiwan here. They're living with his first host family, the Schachters, right now. He is working remotely for his father's company, which is a patent, copyright, trademark business. And she is also working for the family business remotely. She is a patent attorney in Taiwan and is studying and going to take the bar to become a patent attorney here in the United States. And Rex, once he gets his residency, will be looking for employment here in Jackson.
Shop Khalil has a guest.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jose Cuecas. He's a real estate broker here with Fresh Start Realty. I know that a lot of you had a chance to meet him at our casino night. And when I saw that Mark was going to be our speaker today, I invited him to join us.
And I believe Michael has a guest today.
Who is he? We're very glad to have you. Glad to be here. Glad to be here. Glad to be here. With any luck, this will be Michael's last meeting as a guest. Might be my last meeting if I don't start coming tomorrow.
Any other guests that were on the list?
Welcome you today. So glad you came along, glad you came our way. Our hand of fellowship is yours, sunshine or in rain. We here in Rotary say welcome, come again.
Michael, I didn't see your lips moving. Were you gone to know that song by this time?
Thank you so much, Lynn. And to introduce our program for today is past president Harlan Boss.
Thank you, President Richard. It's my privilege to introduce today's speaker, Mark Rosener. Mark is the president of the Northeast Florida Association of Realtors, better known as NEFAR. He's a native of Hollywood, Florida, was raised in Battle Creek, Michigan, graduated from Kalamazoo College, and spent over 25 years enjoying, his bio says, enjoying the retail management side of commerce. He began at Watson Realty on the South Side Jacksonville office and moved up through the ranks where he now serves as the regional vice president of the North Central region for Watson, where he's responsible for the oversight, development, and leadership of 13 offices with more than 450 agents. He's been heavily involved with NEFAR, NEF MLS, and the Florida Realtors since 2011. He was elected to serve as president-elect of NEFAR in 21 and assumed the role of the presidency this year. He and his wife, Laura, who is also a realtor, probably some pretty exciting pillow talk, have been married for nearly 44 years. And they have 3 grown children and 8 grandchildren. Please join me in welcoming Mark Rosener.
Very proud to have welcomed our son into the real estate business as well. Recently, he is a realtor in the state of Alabama. So we're a family of realtors. But thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. Real estate seems to be one of those topics that everybody likes to talk about. And I've heard some great stories already today. I've heard, well, I think I might like to sell my house. probably worth a lot more than I thought, but where would I go, right? Is number one. And then Barry indicated that he might be selling some warehouse space in Texas. So real estate is a hot topic, and I'm very happy to be here today. So I'd like to go over just a couple of the statistics and benchmarks of where we are in Northeast Florida. So the best way to do that, I think, is this infographic that is provided to us from Real MLS, which NEF MLS became Real MLS about a year ago, maybe two. But our median price in the marketplace today, and it says 6-county marketplace: Duval County, St. Johns, Clay, Putnam, Baker, and Nassau. Yes, thank you. So our average, if you look at those 6 counties, is about $359,000. That's up almost 24% from a year ago in April, which is just mind-boggling, right? It seems to be moderating a little bit. The month over month, or from March until April, it only went up by about 2.5%. So we're beginning to see the median price kind of level off a little bit. Can I step away from here and still be on camera so I can see the screen? Yes, no? Okay, yeah, okay. So units sold, about 2,700 units in the month of April. That's up about, or down, I'm sorry, about 17% from a year ago. And that's pretty much the same month to month with a 12.5% decrease March to April. Our active inventory, which is a category that we watch very, very carefully. If you look back pre-pandemic, typically we had about 7,000 active residential listings in our marketplace. Today we have about 3,200. So it's down dramatically even from a year ago, but we saw it move up from March to April. Now, part of that is pretty normal, right? As homeowners get into the spring season, we typically see a little bit more activity with new listings on the market. Median days on the market. This is how fast a home is selling. Average of 12 days on the market. Right? Amazing. Is there anybody in the room that tried to sell their home somewhere in the 2009, 10 or 11 timeframe? Right? God bless you, right? You were probably on the market 6 months or more.
California you're selling too.
Oh, wow.
Horrible.
Yeah. So 12 days is amazing. And sometimes some of our listings are selling in a matter of hours, which is quite amazing. And it continues to escalate in terms of that days on market is still reducing. A median sold price per square foot at $203 per square foot. That's a mind-boggling number as well. That's really quite high, up 27% from a year ago, up 4% from last month. Probably the most encouraging thing for us right now is that our new listings, those are new listings that are hitting the market, was almost 3,500 new listings last month. While that's still down from a year ago, it is up from March, up about 7%, which is a good sign. Again, typical for the spring season that more listings would come on, but we'll take any good news we can get in terms of additional inventory to sell. If you're a realtor, one stat that I was sharing with somebody today, there are 11,000 members of Northeast Florida Association of Realtors, and there's 3,100 active listings. That's about 4 realtors for every listing, right? That's wow, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm a realtor that lived through the downturn and sustained myself through that time. Now is an equally difficult time for realtors. We've got 11,000 of them fighting for their buyers and trying to find those listings. So let's look at median sale price in some of the counties that we work in. The total 6 county, as we talked about, is $359,000. In Duval County, $315,000. St. Johns County. Anybody here live in St. Johns County? Wow, $526,000 median price. And then in Putnam County, which is kind of the other side of that story, right? So in the 6 counties, we range from $200 a square, or excuse me, $200,000 median price up to $525. But I think the point that I'd like to make here is we're starting to moderate. If you look at some of the trend lines, they're starting to level off a little bit. And in fact, in St. Johns County, it maintained month to month, March to April, a 0.1% decrease. But in Putnam County, it fell by 10%. Now let's remember that median price is that price at which half the homes sold for more and half sold for less. So for example, in St. Johns County, if you had an inordinate amount of oceanfront multi-million-dollar homes sell, that's going to bump that median price up, right? Same thing in Putnam County, believe it or not. There's some really nice, anybody from Putnam County? One of my offices there. It's a great place, and riverfront properties are very affordable in Putnam County. But if you have more riverfront properties selling in a month, that's going to raise your price, right? In Putnam County, we also have a fair amount of inventory that are mobile home or manufactured homes at a relatively low price point, right? So that's why that median price fell, just the mix of properties selling that day, right? Or that month. Here's some other statistics that we look at. And these are all signs that the market is beginning to moderate in 2022. Closed sales at about 2,700 closed sales. That's down about 13% from March. That is really quite unusual. Usually March to April, we start seeing that spring season kick in. It's nice to see people moving to the area. You'll be looking for a home soon, and we're going to help you with that, right? Pending sales, which are those homes that have gone under contract in the month of April, basically flat at 2,900. That's a good sign. We'll talk about supply and demand in just a few minutes. Price per square foot is moderating as well, up 4% month over month. The home affordability index at 86. So let's talk about affordable housing, right? Because that is a major issue in our city, in our market area, and in the US in total. So let's take a look at that. Oh, more on that later. Okay, you all right? All right. Days on market, we talked about 12 days, but look, it's kind of flattening out a little bit. New listings is bumping up. That is good to see. Active inventory, again, that curve or that line, that trend line is flattening out, which is also good to see. And the months of inventory, what that tells us is if everything stayed the same based on the inventory today and the sales that we clocked in the month of April, we only have 1.2 months supply. But that again is kind of leveling out a little bit. For those of you that kind of watch real estate, and I talked to someone today and they said, isn't 6 months a balanced market? And the answer to that is yes. 6 months is kind of the balance. Anything less than that is a seller's market. Anything more than that becomes a buyer market. You know, back in 2009 and 10, we had 16,000 listings, and it was definitely a buyer's market. We have been in a seller's market for probably the last 4 to 5 years, and it got really significantly shifted towards a seller's market when the pandemic hit. Yes, sir.
On the 12 days where it spikes up there, is that what is that level? Is that higher or less days?
So that means more days.
Okay.
And that's normal also because that was in the October, November, December timeframe. And we do typically see things slow down during the holidays. Good point. So let's talk about please, home affordability. So what that 86 index means is that the household income, the median household income in our market area is 86% of what would be necessary to qualify for a median priced home at the prevailing interest rates. Anybody have an idea of what's happened to interest rates in the mortgage industry over the last couple of months, right? But before we get to that, the April index by county, St. John's is the least affordable at 59, Nassau County 81, Clay 89, Duval County is actually almost at 100, which means that the median income can buy a median priced home at the prevailing interest rates. And Putnam, actually, the median income is a little greater than what would be necessary to qualify for a mortgage at the median price. Over the last couple months where we've seen the index dropping, a big piece of that is the interest rate. Back in January, the mortgage interest rate nationally on average was 3.375 to 3.5%. As of yesterday, when I talked to my mortgage guy, it was at 5.5 to 5.75 national average. So a 2-point increase in mortgage rates. That is very significant, and that is absolutely impacting how affordability. One of the things we're starting to see are ARMs. They were very, very popular in the early 2000s. They're becoming more popular now. They're typically a 5 or 10-year ARM, right? And where before the downturn, those ARMs were resetting in 3 years, and they were a very low or very high loan to value, right? So it was leveraged a great deal in each of the homes. And when those reset, particularly during the downturn, a lot of those people were forced to sell their home, either short sale or let it go back to the bank. So the ARMs today are much safer. There's much more reasonable loan to value, and they're at 5 to 10-year reset. But that ARM mortgages have grown from 3% at the beginning of the year to 11%, and I just read that in a newsletter this morning. So we are seeing popularity of mortgages. And although I'm not sure if insurance rates, homeowners insurance rates are included in the index, has anybody had their homeowners insurance reset lately? Lisa Marie?
Crazy.
Crazy, right? Did it double?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes?
I just got my notice yesterday, it went up.
Yeah. It's not unusual to see at least a 25% increase. Some people are 40. We have seen in the state of Florida triple and quadruple rates, right? So what is really, yes, sir.
Mark, is that a lot of that result of the use of re-roofs? Yes.
Yes, the short answer is absolutely, yes. So here are some stats that an insurance friend of mine gave me recently. If we take the other 49 states, they averaged 730 litigated insurance claims in 2020. The state of Florida, 95,000 litigated claims. Is that not staggering, right? Of the $15 billion in insurance payments since 2013, so about 9 years, 71% went to lawyers and other legal expenses. Now, I'm sure there are lawyers here in the room. Those that were clapping are the no. So we all kind of know what's happening there, right? And I am not against attorneys, believe me, right? That is not my point. But there are some, well, for example, in the state of Florida, there was one attorney in South Florida that had 1,200 notices of intent to litigate in the first quarter of 2021. One attorney, right? Think about that, right? That's on pace to do 4,800 litigated claims with just one lawyer. If you compare that to the other 49 states who only average 730 total all suit, right? That is a staggering amount. Yes, a lot of that is roof. Some people knocking on doors and having you sign over your benefits, and those will mostly become litigated claims. There's water intrusion also down in the South Florida area that is causing some of this same type of scenario, but insurance is like crazy. Florida realtors, go ahead.
Just clarification on that. So normally in those other states, the insurance company said, hey, you've had damage. Here's your, I'm going to give you this. And the difference here is that 95,000 times a lawyer said, not acceptable.
That's
Okay.
basically it. But a lot of those are assigned benefits, right? So the roofing company is working to get an assigned benefits, and then they're going to an attorney. And the average claim for an unlitigated claim is 11,000. A litigated claim is 54,000. So 5 times.
Wow. Okay.
Right? So as realtors, we understand that this is a big issue, right? And so we lobbied hard for that to be, the legislature to take that up in the 2022 session. We were unsuccessful, but we lobbied the governor, and Governor DeSantis has called a special session to deal with this one singular issue later on this year. So hopefully we will begin to see some insurance relief on the part of homeowners. That's pretty staggering numbers, right? And again, I'm not against attorneys, sir. Sorry. Right? And definitely not judges. I never want to be in your courtroom, right? So a couple of things, you know, we're as realtors, we're all about home ownership, right? Our goal is to get everyone that wants to buy a home and can qualify for a home to be a homeowner, right? So the Hometown Heroes down payment assistance is one way that we've been able to address the home affordability issue. Hometown Heroes is a fund that was funded by the legislator, about $100 million, and it, I think, was passed because it's going into effect in June. And that is down payment assistance for first responders and frontline workers, fire, police, first responders, teachers, and nurses, those kinds of folks, right? So we believe that that will help. One of the roadblocks to home ownership is being able to save for a down payment, especially for those first-time home buyers, right? So this will help with that, we hope. And then on the national level, there's a couple of initiatives, the Housing Supply and Affordability Act, which is really some grants and incentives for affordable house, for builders to build affordable housing. There's the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act, which is a very similar act. The greater revitalization of shopping centers. How many of you have driven by a shopping center, mall, strip mall, and it's been largely vacant?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's happening, right? Retail took a huge hit during the pandemic. Everybody would agree. Amazon was the huge winner, right? How many of you had multiple packages a week arrive at your doorstep, right? So my wife gets really irritated with me because the credit card that's on the Amazon is an American Express. And I hooked it up so that I get notification every time it's used without being, right? So I know what she's buying at Amazon, and I don't know exactly what it is, but I know there's a package coming, right? She doesn't like that too much. I think she's figured it out and put it on the credit card.
Don't ask any questions.
Yeah, right. But this act is really encouraging the government to help be creative about how we might be able to reuse vacant shopping centers, right, into residential, convert them to residential, more affordable homes. And a lot of those vacant retail establishments are in neighborhoods that could really use some affordable housing. Would you agree? Yeah, so that is really important. And then the Revitalizing Downtowns Act. Again, that's the same kind of thing where we want to take downtown areas and help them be right for revitalization and investment in affordable housing. Not a Four Seasons hotel, although that is really great and we're glad to have that, right? But more affordable housing in the downtown areas. So that's kind of what we've been working on in terms of home affordability. Big question I get from the media and everybody I talk to, is this a bubble that's going to burst? What do y'all think?
No.
No, it really isn't, right? And the short answer is no. Today's real estate market is purely classic supply and demand. We don't have enough supply and there's a lot of demand, right? So very different than the last downturn. And it's normal for people to ask that question. How many of you owned a home, bought a home in 04 or 05, right? And watched that value go south in 8, 9, 10, 11. We all, you know, if you owned a home during that period of time, it happened to you, right? So it's normal to have that fear. But back then, there was excessive supply and demand was shrinking. It's just the opposite now. So NAR, National Association of Realtors, has estimated that in the US, we have 5 million home shortage, which means we're missing 5 million homes in the US. That's a big number. How did that happen? The builders during the downturn got hit. And so they've been very, very cautious, and they're not building, and they have not been building for the last 10 years to a level to keep up with the demand for housing formation, the home formation, right? Millennials are reaching their peak home buying age, right? How many of you have a millennial in your family, right? How many of them are wanting to maybe look to buy a home? Absolutely, right? That is a large part of the generation. There are actually more millennials than there are baby boomers, right? So baby boomers that are looking to maybe relinquish their homes, there's fewer of them than the millennials that want to buy them. We're also seeing an influx of migration from the Northeast and from the West Coast, from California, right? Why? They're in a densely populated area with home values that are outrageous, right? If you are able to work from home in a tech job and you live in San Francisco in a 1,000 square foot flat that is worth, if you had to pay $1 million or more for, but you can work from home. Why wouldn't you work from home anywhere in the world? And why not Northeast Florida? We got great weather, we have great beaches, and we don't have any state income tax. All great reasons to move here. And those folks in the Northeast and the West Coast are seeing that. And even though our median price is quite high, relatively historically speaking, we're still much more affordable. And we're the most affordable metropolitan area in the state of Florida. So if you're going to move to Florida and work remotely, actually, I read somewhere recently that there's quite a large population of tech people in the tech industry that are moving to Northeast Florida. They're working from home. That whole work from home thing, when the world shut down, how many of you started working from home? All of us. How many had multiple career in the same house working from home? How'd that work for you? Could be challenging, right? My wife and I, my wife's a realtor, we worked from home for about 6 to 8 weeks. And when I had a Zoom call, she had one, the house wasn't big enough for us to separate ourselves and be independent for that Zoom call. So it created challenges, and people realized that their current home no longer fit their needs. And that created a demand as well. The other reason why we're not in a bust, homeowner equity. In the US, we have hit historic equity points in time. Are there bankers in the room? Yes. Is it true? I mean, I've heard it's in the trillions of equity in our homes, all-time high. And liquidity, right? So even for those folks that were unfortunate enough to have lost their jobs during the pandemic, they can sell their house and walk away with cash. Yes, they're going to have to go into the rental market for a period of time, but at least they're not selling short or turning the keys over to the bank. So no, short answer is, and I gave you the long answer too. So I think that is it. So I really want to thank you for allowing me to be here today, and I'll take whatever questions I can. Yes, sir, Steve.
All right. Is there anyone tracking in NEFR or any other organization, kind of county by county for this area, the 6 counties, the number of residential units, not multifamily, single family, controlled by investment firms renting them out?
Yeah. It is a good question, and it's one that if you're a buyer in today's market, you may be involved in a multiple offer situation. And if you're in the price point of $250,000 to $400,000, it's likely that you're going to be competing against an institutional buyer that is doing just that. NAR tracks that, and NAR says on a national level, of the homes that are investment homes, single family, available for rent, 10% are owned by institutional, 90% are owned by individuals with less than 5 investment properties. So does it exist? Absolutely. Is it a majority? Absolutely not. It is still a relatively small number as a percentage. That doesn't help when you're competing against them. But here's the thing I tell folks when they're talking about that. As an institutional buyer that's going to buy and hold, they're not just looking at the monthly cash flow. They're looking at the upside of appreciation over time. And if those investors who are very smart people see an upside in our market and they're willing to come in and buy properties in our market, we should feel good about that. We should feel good that they see an upside in appreciating home values.
I like
in our
it to a
marketplace.
degree. The reason I wanted the numbers is everything always, human nature, we always take things past the point of equilibrium to the unhealthy. And so if we could track those numbers, we know when we started getting in unhealthy, because let's face it, at the end of the day, an investor is just an investor.
Right.
Yeah, they own all these homes. Yeah, they're excited about appreciation. Yeah, they're excited while they still have renters. But as soon as the winds come and blow the other way, I'm in fighting and scrapping and selling hot dogs in the corner to keep my mortgage alive.
Right.
They're gone. They don't care. And that's thousands and thousands of homes dumped back on.
Right.
So
It could be, and that is obviously a concern that we all have. But here's kind of so we all know that what brought us out of the doldrums were investors. They came into the market in 2011 and 2020, 2012 and bought a lot of property, right?
we're well rewarded for it.
Right. Have they dumped those properties in what is probably a peaked market? No, not yet, right? So, and they're vested in making sure that they don't instigate a housing collapse. So they're not going to dump a bunch of inventory. That's not a smart investment thought process strategy, right? So I don't see that happening, and I can, we could look to make have those numbers available on a local level. It's a good idea.
A lot of that though is that their model has changed. Back in the day, they were looking to flip the property, keep it as long as they had to, and turn around and resell it. Now everything's a rental basis.
Yeah, and that really began to shift in 2011 and 2012, right? Because they wanted the long term. And back then they were looking at communities, and one of their criteria, because we worked with one at Watson Realty, their criteria was a community where there was a 40% or more depreciation from the peak in 2006. And that was their trigger to buy, right? That's no longer a trigger because that's not happening. So yes, we are seeing more and more of that where they're holding. And will they, Mr. Watson, as a matter of fact, I mean, he owns hundreds of properties, investment properties, and he sells off a couple a year, right? And that's a good strategy for him, right? So I would anticipate the institutional buyers. There's also the iBuyer, which are flippers, right? They will come in and give you a cash offer for your property. You won't have to show it. You don't have to have open houses. They'll offer you less than market value, typically 5 to 10% less than market value for that convenience. And then they flip it, right? Their profit margins are very low, and they make money based on the number that they're doing. As a real estate professional, we'd like to talk with you about your options before you go directly to one of the iBuyers, just because we can represent you. And when you go direct, they're looking out just for them, not for you.
Well,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have noticed that the car warranty people have been replaced by, I want to buy your property.
Yes.
Telephone calls.
Yes, telephone calls and letters, right? I received one just yesterday wanting to buy my house. I get them 3 or 4 a month on my investment townhouse on the south side. So yes, that's happening. Again, they see an upside in the market, right? And if they can come in and buy your house for slightly under market value and hold it and lease it, it could be a benefit to them. Yes, sir. That'd be-
What's your top 2 or 3 pieces of advice for someone who's currently in the sell-buy market?
Yeah. Number one is connect with a realtor that you trust, and then listen to their advice. And sometimes that can be rather hard. In a seller's market like we are today, we're seeing many sellers, we're beginning to see price reductions. And what's happening, our sellers have listened to all this craziness in the marketplace, and they're being unrealistic about what they think they can get for their house. So number one, if you're selling and buying, is connect with a realtor that you trust, that will give you good sound advice and tell you what you need to know, not what you want to hear, right? Which sometimes can be two different things. And then as a buyer, you have to make your offer as attractive as you possibly can to the seller. And part of that is working with your realtor to work with the listing realtor to identify what it is that the seller's looking to do. So we're seeing many things that buyers are putting into their offers, right? They're doing it as is, no inspections, which is very dangerous. I would not recommend that, right? They're doing appraisal gaps, which is to say, I'm going to offer you $10,000 over your list price because I want to win the bid. And I will upfront tell you, I'll pay $10,000 more than appraised value should it not appraise for what I'm offering. So those are a couple. They're a little risky. If you can position yourself with cash, it works really well. If you have a lot of equity in your home, there are programs out there now that can free up some of the equity and liquidity that you have in your home to help you be a not contingent upon the sale of a home. So those are a couple of strategies to use, but be patient as a buyer. Listen to the advice of your trusted realtor, and always try to structure your offer to meet the needs of the seller. The other big thing that's happening in the world today is post-occupancy for the seller. If you're not in a hurry to move in, and you can offer the seller, hey, you can live here in the home for 90 days at a very reasonable rent, while you go out with the cash you just got to buy a house, that could be very beneficial for a seller as well. Yes, sir. What can I go here?
Sure.
Is Zillow accurate?
No.
How does Zillow know what you've done to the inside of your house?
That's right. So Zillow is a brokerage. They now belong to every MLS in the country. And I am absolutely, I abide by the code of ethics, which tells me that I'll never disparage another brokerage. But let me just point out one thing, right? Zillow became Zillow because of their Zestimate, right? It attracted an awful lot of people to their portal. Would you all agree? Right? They went into the iBuying world in 2021, and they got out in 2021 because they were overpaying for properties based on their Zestimate. I'll let you figure that one out. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that there are 11,000 realtors.
Yes.
I see 2,600 sales. And I see how the market has improved a whole bunch. But I'm trying to make that either we got a whole lot of very part-time real estate brokers, or we've had a huge increase since 2010 where there were, I mean, so few sales. Why do we have 11,000 realtors in a market like this?
So the Great Resignation is one reason. There are a lot of people that their jobs were phased out during the pandemic, and the threshold to get a real estate license is rather low in the state of Florida, right? So we saw an influx. We take in about 250 new realtors every month at NEFAR, right? And that has not slowed down. So there's a lot of people getting in. How do they survive, right? Do the math, right? If there are 3,000 sales a month and there are 11,000, that means there's 9,000. Is that the right math? Or 8,000 realtors that didn't get a paycheck.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So how do you survive? Well, remember that the average realtor in the US makes less than $40,000. All right. So you're right. There are a lot of part-time.
How do they afford to buy a home?
How do they afford to buy a home? So many realtors, that's a second income in the household, right? So that accounts for a part of it, right? A spouse in the market. You know, I tell my wife all the time, she's a realtor, she does very well. I could be a kept man, not a problem. Yeah, cool, right? Yeah. So, yes.
For the past 6 months, there have been a lot of economists that think this inflationary period that we're in, not just houses, but just the economy as a whole, inflationary period is going to be followed by a recessionary period sometime probably next year. Does the National Association of Realtors agree with that?
So yes, Dr. Lawrence Yun, who is our chief economist for National Association of Realtors, says that there will probably be a recession. As you all know, GNP shrunk for the first quarter of 2022. We only need 2 quarters of GNP shrinkage to be called a recession, right? So it's quite possible, total economy, that we would see a recession sometime in the next year to 18 months. That does not necessarily mean a housing recession.
And normally a recession affects some parts of the country prior to other parts of the country. Do you know where Florida would fall into that? Or is there a prediction as to where Florida would fall?
So I don't have any hard, cold facts on that, but I will say that our economy is probably stronger than most states. Our unemployment is lower. You know, we have in-migration into the state as opposed to an exit from the state. So there's a lot of indicators that Florida will probably not be as hard hit recession-wise. The other side of that, though, is we are throughout the state very heavily dependent upon the service industry, which, as you know, took a major hit during the downturn, and it's just now. How many of you been to a restaurant lately that you couldn't get served, right? It happens, right? But we've got a lot of job openings, right? And so I would just say from what I've heard that Florida will probably not be as hard hit as some other states. Yes, sir.
So with 3,000 sales or 4 realtors for every 1 home that's for sale, as a seller, am I able to, do I have negotiating power on my commissions?
Commissions are always negotiable. Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, obviously, yes, I can, but I mean, it sounds to me like I have a lot of power now. If 4 of you are looking to sell my home, I can basically start a bidding war within my agents as well.
Commissions have always been negotiable. Yes, sellers are in the catbird seat at this point in time. And as realtors, we do see some pressure on the commission revenue. I'm a regional vice president for Watson Realty Corp, and we do see that as an indicator. However, I would tell you that you get what you pay for. And sometimes the most qualified realtor that will get you the most for your property in the least amount of time with the least amount of inconvenience is probably not going to be the cheapest. Did I say that okay, Jose? We got another realtor in the room.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
We've lived in Julian's Creek Plantation for almost 20 years. Have no plan to move. But I saw a statistic recently. I think it said that 19% of the homes in Julian's Creek Plantation were investor owned. Which, if I saw that correct, I said, "What?" You know, me, I'm so naive. I think everybody there, owns their own home. What I'm wondering is if that's accurate in Julian's Creek Plantation. What is that? How does that compare with other large developments that have come online, say in the last 10 years? The big builders, the national guys that are in St. Johns County. Would that kind of a statistic hold true for homes in those places too?
So I'm not familiar with that statistic, but I would tell you that during the run-up back in 03, 04, and 05, most builders did not have restrictions on the number of homes that an investor could buy until the market turned. And now they're restricting, because what was happening, think about it, right? When a huge run-up of pricing, you can go under contract for new construction it takes 9 months to build and you have $30,000 worth of equity built in, right? And so you flip it. And there were investors that were doing that. Julington Creek is a little bit older than that, so that really wasn't happening in Julington Creek. So the builders kind of put a kibosh on that. And so most new home communities will not allow investor purchases. Now, resale could happen, right? So again, to answer Steve's question, about 10% is owned by institutional investors. If that's, there's another 90% that are owned by mom and pops, or with 5 or less. So it might be possible. Your realtor can kind of get that information for you. It's our tax information gives us homeowner occupied, and so we can quickly do a.
I was amazed last year. One of our neighbors down the street, they had an unusually large home. They added on a in-law suite and that kind of thing. They listed the house on Friday morning at 8:50, and they had an open house Sunday afternoon. And by that night, they had 8 offers, all of which were above the asking price. They sold it that night, I think, for $905. Of course, everybody in our neighborhood went, "What? Good gosh!" It was a real wake up, I guess, for a lot of people that just weren't aware of what was going on out.
So I'm getting the hook, but let me just tell you a personal story, right? My wife, as you know, is a realtor, right? She listed a home, a very modest home for $350,000 about a year ago. And she thought she was listing it at the top of the comps. She had 16 offers in a matter of 2 days. One of the offers, and the offer that won, was for $450,000. The buyers were 2 doctors and Mayo, and they had lost out on home after home after home when they made an offer. The most previous offer was $80,000 over list, and they lost it. And they said, okay, I want this house and I'm willing to pay for it, right? $100,000 over list. Now, this is not $100,000 over $1.5 million listing. This is $100,000 over 350. I mean, that's a percentage. That's huge. I'm not even gonna do the math. Yeah. Do I need to?
You're fine. Keep going.
Okay.
Just for fun, one question.
Sure.
Explain the escalators. It's sort of a fun fact.
Oh, yeah. So your realtor can do an escalatory clause, which says, I'm going to offer you $350,000, which is your list price, but I'm willing to give you $1,000 over the next best offer up to $20,000 over list, right? And it happens all the time. So what happens though for a listing agent is many times you have multiple offers with multiple escalatories. So now what do you do, right? I've got this escalatory that's willing to go $1,000 over the next best price up to 20,000. I've got another one that'll go 1,500 over up to $25,000 over. I mean, it's craziness to be able to sort all that out. And that's why we have real estate attorneys to turn to. Circle back and to give the attorneys a plug. Thank you guys very much. I'll stick around if anybody has any. Thank you.
We thank you for the wealth of information that you brought us today, and as a part of our gratitude, we'd like to give you this certificate, which will remind you that we've made a small donation to the Rotary Foundation for the eradication of polio in your honor.
Thank you very much.
Yes. A bit of news. Next week, we have a stellar program for your enjoyment that we have not figured out yet.
Enjoy it, but it'll be a good one.
Honesty is always the best policy, right? Anyway, we'll have something good. The board will meet in 5 minutes, and as we end our meeting, I remind you of our membership motto, each one bring one, and our Rotary motto, service above self, one thought is most deserved.